and I will hand it off to Orlando for presenting on a number of telecom compliance issues. So without further ado.
Chris, thank you so much for the intro. It's great to see a bunch of people here. I wasn't sure how many folks would show up, so it's good to see that you're all here. If you all fall asleep beforehand, I'm terribly sorry. Compliance is one of those awesomely interesting subjects. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Orlando Guitian. I'm the founder of Tiltex and Smart Carrier. Tiltex was probably one of the first companies, if not the first company, to come out with a fully compliant web service for StirShaken back in late 2020. So we're going to discuss today navigating the complexities of telecom and of telecom compliance, best practices and strategies. We're going to break this down a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and start with StirShaken. Then we're going to go ahead and go into overview of state and federal calling regulations, as well as KYC. So KYC best practices. We implemented a KYC process around 4 or 5 years ago that has served us rather well. So we are looking to share that information here as well. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So the first thing, the proper implementation of StirShaken, ensuring the effective application of StirShaken standards to combat robocalls and enhance call authenticity. First and foremost, I am not a practicing attorney. So if you guys have any legal questions, I'd recommend you go to your general counsel or to your attorneys and ask them accordingly. So A versus B versus C. We've all heard of this. So as we may know, A, you know the client, you know the number, you can assign it with an A. B, you know the client, you may not know the number that they're using. There might be passing the call off to a third-party service for verification. They may have acquired telephone numbers to a different provider that you may not know of, but you know who they are. So that's usually where B comes in. And a C is usually reserved for international gateways. So you don't know the client, or they're coming in from a point outside the US, then you'll go ahead and assign this a C. What we've done internally within our practices for StirShaken is that we've provided clients with a web service to go ahead and post DIDs that they may have purchased from authorized vendors that we can integrate with, so we can verify that they actually own those numbers before we go ahead and sign anything. We also take a look at where the call is coming in from. Are they coming in from a VPN? Are they coming in from an external source? Where is the media coming from? This is a very, this could go one way or the other, simply because you do have clients of yours that may have agents overseas, and their media IPs might be overseas. So some of our clients choose to, if you detect a media IP that's overseas, go ahead and mark it with a C. Otherwise, just to mark it with a B, because it's a known agent to us. Does that all make sense? All right. So in a nutshell, A, if you sign a call with an A, that means you are attesting that you know this client, you know who they are, and that could, if anything happens, they're going to come back to you and say, hey, but you signed this call, so why did you sign with an A if you didn't know the client or if you didn't know the number? So that is the highest level. B, again, you know the client. You may not know that number specifically. It might be a larger company like Microsoft or whatever. And C, they're international gateways or unknown. I'm going to hold off questions to about the next 15 or 20 minutes. So if y'all have any questions on this, just hold up till the end. I'm only going to talk for about half an hour, and hopefully y'all will still be awake by then, and this will be good. The next topic is an overview of state and federal calling guidelines, a comprehensive look at calling regulations, subscriber maxims, and calling curfews. We all know the federal DNC. Sound familiar to everybody? All right. What we do with the federal DNC is that in order to protect our network, we offer it to our clients. We require that they do have a SAN number, so we can offer that to them. If they don't have a SAN number, they cannot use it. We do audit that SAN number with the FTC just to make sure that they are leveraging the area codes that they are able to leverage. And that's something that we offer to them just to keep everybody safe. We're not here to poach. We just want to make sure that everybody is compliant and everybody's playing nice in the sandbox. As of a few weeks ago, I'm not sure this has changed in the past few weeks, there are 11 states that require a state DNC now. So if you're calling into them, you can go ahead and leverage those state DNCs. Some states, such as Louisiana, do not allow you to resell to third parties. Maybe that changed in the past few weeks, don't know. But there are several states that do not allow you to resell to a third party, so that's something your clients would have to go ahead and figure out how they're going to go ahead and leverage those. Right now it's Colorado, Florida, Indiana, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Missouri, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, and Wyoming. And again, if you have clients that are calling into there, or if you have platforms that call into there, you might want to take a look at the regulations around utilizing the state DNC to go ahead and further make sure that everybody is TCPA compliant, et cetera. Subscriber maximums. This is a really interesting one. We see it within our practice. We limit how many times our clients, if they have a contact center, how many times they can actually call to certain states to the same subscriber on the same campaign within either 8 or 24 hours. And this is done to protect everybody. Nobody wants the person that's calling you 5, 6, 7 times in a day because it's annoying. And what's going to happen is that you, like I have done in the past, you're going to turn around, make a complaint, and now people are upset. So this is something that we've put into our software, where clients are allowed to say, I only want to contact this person 3 times in a 24-hour period, or in an 8-hour period, or maybe they may want to make it 5, but we give them that flexibility. The platform defaults to 3 because that is what most states go for. There are 4 states that have subscriber maximums, and there's going to be a QR code after this that you can just email us. We can send you the information. So yeah, the 4 states, I believe it's Florida, Oklahoma, and 2 more that really restrict how many times you can call into a party. And then we have calling curfews. This gets complicated because of time zones. Not every state abides by daylight saving time. Parts of states may not abide by daylight saving time. Parts of area codes may fall into different time zones altogether. For example, 915 in Texas, that has 2 time zones. So where are you calling? Are you calling into Central, or are you calling into Mountain Time? That makes a difference because you don't want to call somebody at 8 or 7 in the morning if you don't need to. So that's something to take a look at if you're writing software for all this stuff is, hey, there are calling curfews. There are states that do not abide by daylight saving time. There are states that may have split area codes into different time zones, and you'll have to figure out best practice to figure out which time zone is this person in. Obviously, portability complicates the issue, but there's very little that most people can do on the portability issue. So those are really like the main points when looking at this. Is you have your federal DNC, you have your state level DNC, which is becoming more and more progressive amongst the states. You have subscriber maximums. More and more states are beginning to adopt subscriber maximums so that you don't harass their residents, which makes perfect sense. Nobody likes to be called 50 times in one day. And then you have calling curfews because nobody wants to be called at 12 o'clock in the morning if you're in California and they thought you were in Florida. I'm sure that's happened to some people around here. So our final topic is KYC. Now this is probably the one thing that is going to save a lot of people. If you have a bad KYC process, if you don't have a KYC process, if you're just throwing it up in the air and saying, hey, I got this great registration from this client named princeabdullah@gmail.com, it's going to cause problems for everybody. We like to play nice in the ecosystem. We like to make sure the ecosystem is clean. And that's what most people should thrive for, is that. But what is a KYC and why is it important? I'm sure that you've all have gone to open up an account at some bank in the US, and they ask you 50 questions about who you are, where your funds are coming from, how you're gonna distribute your funds, do you receive wires from other countries, all that stuff. That's all part of a know your customer process. They want to make sure they know who you are before they allow you to move funds across the US and within their bank. Why is this important? If anything happens on your network, you're going to get something called a traceback. Or you're going to get somebody asking you questions, or you're going to get a request for information from somebody about why did this call go out, who is the client, and how did you vet them? How did they come to you? And why are you all of a sudden in the middle of this whole chain? The KYC process is determined to find the bad actors. Obviously, the bad actors are probably a few steps ahead of the good players because that's their job. Their job is to make sure they're ahead of everybody, and their job is to make sure they can get into a telephone network and cause chaos. So what do we do? Well, it's a pain in the butt, but we ask them. We ask them who they are. We probably get 50% of the people that come on and sign up to our website do not complete a Know Your Customer form. When we take a look at it deeper, we realize why. They're not in the US. They are somebody who has a bad rap with the FTC. There's something about it that they don't want you to know who they are, which is why they're not going to complete that Know Your Customer form. The Know Your Customer form has also helped us catch people that shouldn't be placing phone calls within the US or anything to that extent. I'll go ahead and share some tactics that we use to keep it safe that to this day have done us quite well. But the whole point is to figure out who the scammer is. The whole point is to figure out, is this person going to be a risk? And if they are going to be a risk, do I want them on my platform? Do I want them as a client? Do I want to be exchanging funds with this client or anything with this client? So that's the whole point of this. And one thing that we do is that you're all familiar with 2FA, right? You get a text message and all that stuff. We always ask new signups for their cell phone number for 2FA reasons. We also use that information to figure out, are they actually in the US or not? Because it'll be very challenging for somebody overseas to have an AT&T cell phone or to have a Verizon cell phone or anything like that. So that's kind of our first gate, is that we figure out, is this person giving us a bandwidth VoIP number or an Envoy VoIP number, or are they giving us an actual cell phone number here in the US? From there, we figure out, where are they coming in from? Are they using a VPN to get in? Are they not using a VPN to get in? What is their IP address? Is their IP address in the middle of Pakistan, for example, or India, or any of the known countries that that have committed a high level of fraud within the US? And then we take that even further. We figure out, once they complete their KYC form, we actually ask them for biometrics. So after their KYC form is approved and all that, we actually ask them for a biometric. So we say, hey, that's great. You say that you're this person, then we need you to go ahead and upload your ID and take a selfie. We use a company called Persona for that, because of the risk that's involved with storing PII, or personally identifiable information. We do not store that. We send it off to another company, and they just simply give us a yes or a no answer. So those are basically some of the items we use to determine who should be coming into the network. In the KYC process, we also ask them to upload certain forms, like an IRS CP 575 notice, which basically tells us that they've gone out to the IRS. The IRS has issued them an EIN, and here's the EIN. We ask them for articles of incorporation, just to make sure that they are where they are. There's some states that are higher risk than others. For example, Sheridan, Wyoming. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with Sheridan, Wyoming. But that's a very popular place for people to get their registrations. Whenever we see Sheridan, Wyoming, that's a big red flag for us. There are other places out there that are big red flags, such as UPS PO boxes. If anybody gets somebody with a PO box, I'm sure that's going to be a red flag. But it's not a perfect process, and it does take time. But these are some of the things that we've learned over the years that I'm happily sharing with y'all to help protect everybody. It's not perfect. I'm sure that some folks that should be on don't get approved to get on, but that's just a risk that we take. Any questions on all that? Any questions on any of that? Yes, Mr. Jerry. Hey. Thank you. It means a lot coming from you, I'll tell you that.
I'll repeat that. Is it working? Okay. Yeah, I'll repeat that. That was awesome, Orlando. And I would say that everybody should do that level of KYC. I'm sure that adds a level of expense, but it's sort of a, jurisprudence to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. That's fantastic. And there's certain companies that have gotten in trouble recently. Maybe if they've done the same thing, I won't name names, but What?
Can you speak up a bit?
Yeah, I can talk a lot louder. Here's my question, though. Is there ever any instance it sounds like you might act as an international gateway sometimes, but whether you're officially an international gateway or whether you're just dealing with somebody that you determine that it's from a foreign country, so sort of de facto you're acting like an international gateway, is there ever any instance whatsoever where you would give them any better than C-level attestation? Yeah,
so that's going to go back to the KYC process. That's a great question. I'm not sure if everybody heard. And Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong. What you're asking is, hey, if it's an international gateway, is there a time when you don't issue a C attestation? So this all goes back to the KYC process and knowing who your customer is. It's very common to have agents overseas. Everybody knows that. How they connect to is a different story. We require most of our clients to have a VPN into us, where even if it's an international IP, we know the IP. So they might be coming in from, let's just take Microsoft, because that's a perfect example, or American Express. They have a call center overseas. They're ingressing into you from an overseas IP. That might be their overseas office that has a VPN connection into their main office, whatever the case is. This all goes back to KYC. So basically we ask, hey, do you have any international IPs that we should be aware of so that we don't sign your calls with a C? Because if we see it come in from there, now we have a kind of a chain of custody for that IP. So we have the person that the customer who has filled out the KYC form, we know who the customer is. Now this customer has a chain of custody with this IP internationally. So we have documentation and a chain of custody for that. Does that answer your question?
You actually answered more than my question, which is awesome. Because I wasn't thinking.
I'll fix that next time, I promise.
I wasn't thinking about the VPN part and how you track the IP addresses. That's awesome. But again, is there ever any instance in which you or anybody should provide better than C-level attestation if you think it's from somebody overseas? The
thing is in thinking, because assuming makes, well, we all know what assuming does. The thing is thinking. We will gladly not provide a C attestation from the client if we know the IP that they're ingressing from, and we know that IP is overseas. We're not going to guess and say this agent has some Philippines cable company and their internet dropped and now their IP changed and now it's this. We're not going to do that because at this point we're assuming, and there's no chain of custody to hold that IP to that client. So to directly answer your question, unless it's documented and there is some sort of chain of custody for that IP, we're not going to go ahead and bring up that attestation level for them.
Okay, thanks, Orlando.
You're welcome.
Yeah, great question. I know we do have a lot of people working with AstriCon in call center environments around the world, so it's a real popular choice. We've had a number of presentations about that, so good points to consider and keep in mind. Are there any other questions about the presentation? All right. Thank you so much, Orlando. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Duff had a question for the audience wanted to ask here.
Thank you. I forgot to ask this question yesterday, but I just wanted to ask the good people gathered. Does anybody plan to go to ITW in Washington, D.C.? Yay. A one hand, a two hand? Just wondered. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chris.
Sounds like there may be some related topics there. So, you care to speak to that, Orlando?
What was that?
You care to speak to that conference? You're attending ITW as well?
Yeah, I'm attending ITW as well. I think I see Gary more at conferences now than I ever have seen him, which is great. ITW is a great convention if you guys can make it out to DC. It's a 2 or 3 day event, I believe, and you'll have all sorts of people there globally. So it's an international convention. I was there last year, and it was absolutely amazing. So I would highly recommend if anybody can make it to DC. It's in DC this year, right? Sure, yeah. Virginia or Maryland,
Baltimore,
wherever it is in there.
Sure.
I would highly recommend y'all attend if you can.
Very good. All right, thank you so much.